Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I am Ahmed Ramadan, Government Relations Officer for Justice for All Canada, a human rights advocacy organization with consultative status at the UN. We are here today because on December 16th, a Canadian delegation with 6 members of Parliament trying to see the realities on the ground in the occupied West Bank were denied entry by Israel. With me today are some of the trip delegates and organizational representatives who attempted to travel to the occupied West Bank. We have Umair Ashraf, Executive Director of the Canadian Muslim Vote; Ahmed Qadi, Government Affairs and Public Policy Officer for the National Council of Canadian Muslims; Afnan, Community Advocate for Canadian Muslim Healthcare Network; and Taha, Ghayyur, the Executive Director of Justice for All Canada. This denial of access is not an isolated incident. It is a small sample of the systematic control and intimidation that Palestinians face every single day under occupation. We Canadians have felt a small taste of what that is like. We heard the rhetoric of a powerful neighbor trying to make us the 51st state, threatening our sovereignty and sparking national outrage. It was an attack on the very identity that makes us an independent people. Now imagine that threat was not rhetoric. Imagine that a powerful neighbor was building cities on our land, carving up our provinces and restricting our ability to travel. Yet for Palestinians, this is not rhetoric. This is the reality they face. The map of the West Bank has been redrawn. What remains are scattered, isolated Palestinian communities trapped and cut off from each other and from the rest of Palestine. This fragmentation is the direct result of a deliberate Israeli state and apartheid policy. On December 21st, Israel approved 19 new settlements, which brings the total to 69 under the government, an almost 50% increase since 2022. Canada's own foreign policy, which was reaffirmed this week, is that these settlements are illegal under international law. This raises a profound question. Canada has recognized the state of Palestine. Yet what does that state mean when they do not control their own borders, their land, or their people? Our delegation's denial is proof of this fact. These settlements are not passive communities. They are the instrument of displacement and violence. The UN has documented the highest level of settler violence ever recorded in 2025. This is state-enabled violence that operates as a method of land seizure, creating what the UN calls coercive environment that amounts to the forcible transfer of the Palestinian population, a grave breach under international law. And we cannot separate the occupied West Bank from the genocide unfolding in Gaza. The same policy of elimination is being applied in both territories, as UN experts warn of genocidal dynamics extending beyond Gaza. What we see in the West Bank is territorial erasure with different tools. Canada rightly calls these settlements illegal and has sanctioned particular violent settlers. Yet Canada continues to allow settlement products on our shelves and Canadian entities to finance these projects. Canada's illegal designation of Israeli settlements must carry consequences. Our laws and our principles do not stop at the border. It is time for Canada to match its words with decisive action and end all support for this illegal settlement enterprise. I'll now turn it over to my colleagues who will speak more about this crisis.
Good morning. My name is Umair Ashraf. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Muslim Vote. On Tuesday, December 16th, a parliamentary delegation to Palestine, hosted by our organization, the Canadian Muslim Vote, attempted to enter the West Bank through the Allenby Crossing, at precisely the same location that a TCMV delegation with MPs had previously entered in January of 2024. All delegates complied with Israeli requirements, including pre-approved electronic travel authorizations, yet were arbitrarily denied entry. Our work focuses on helping Canadian Muslims participate meaningfully in a democratic system meant to listen to their concerns. So when international law is clear and violations continue without a response, many Canadians begin to question whether our democratic institutions are willing or able to protect communities facing serious human rights violations. The most consistent concern from thousands of Canadians is the proliferation of all forms of hate, including Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism, and their desire for Canada to ensure its laws and policies meet international human rights standards. This is especially true during the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the settlement crisis in the occupied West Bank. As a result, the Canadian Muslim Vote organizes delegation to understand the lived realities of those in the region and reconcile its connection to our policies. We wanted to understand firsthand what Palestinians are experiencing under illegal occupation described by the United Nations. We wanted to bridge the gap between Canadians seeking accountability and Palestinians living under the consequences of Israeli policy decisions. While denied entry, we still spoke with refugees in Jordan, barred from returning to their homes or entering the West Bank because of discriminatory systems imposed on them. Speaking with them reinforced to me that our civic engagement cannot exist in isolation from this reality of displacement. As someone who encourages the communities to engage with elected leaders, I'm reminded that governments must uphold the same standards they promote. Our responsibility is to insist that Canada's actions reflect its stated commitments, especially when communities we serve are watching. We call on the Government of Canada to strengthen accountability measures for settlements that it deemed illegal. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ahmed. I'm a Government Affairs and Public Policy Officer for the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Despite the fact that the entire delegation complied with Israeli requirements, including filing electronic travel authorizations that were approved, they were arbitrarily denied entry. Israeli authorities, through COGAT, issued false claims that the delegation lacked prior coordination, then cited vague security reasons that included barring 6 sitting Canadian members of Parliament. These shifting justifications were untrue and contradicted documented approvals. To make matters worse, the Israeli border authorities arbitrarily detained one of our team members for questioning and went as far as assaulting a sitting member of Parliament. The refusal of the Israeli government to allow Canadian members of Parliament to access the West Bank raises serious concerns about transparency, accountability, and the ability of elected officials to carry out fact-finding missions on behalf of Canadians. So the writing on the wall is clear. This Israeli government is not a friend to Canada, because no friend treats its allies the way Canadian members of Parliament were treated at the border. In what world do we ally with governments who physically assault our MPs? And while we were disappointed that entry was not granted, it is unsurprising given the recent escalations by the Israeli government. Their continued expansion of illegal settlements on Palestinian land, which Canada, alongside many allies, rightly called a violation of international law, is indicative of a broader pattern of oppression against Palestinians in the West Bank. So our message to Prime Minister Qadi is, firstly, we welcome Minister Annan's swift summoning of the Israeli ambassador, but urge Canada to seek a clear, coherent, and fact-based explanation for why Canadian members of Parliament, civil society representatives, and organizations were barred from entry, why false and damaging allegations were made against Canadians, and why Israeli border officials physically assaulted a sitting member of Parliament. Secondly, given the violations of international law by the Israeli government, it is in Canada's best interest to strengthen accountability measures by expanding sanctions related to illegal settlements activity and enforcing Canadian law against those who participate in or materially support such violations. Third, investigate Canadian citizens or entities involved in advancing illegal settlements and take appropriate legal action, and ban imports from illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. Canada must communicate unequivocally that harm to Canadian citizens at home or abroad will carry diplomatic consequences. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Afnan, and I am a community advocate speaking on behalf of the Canadian Muslim Healthcare Network. the Canadian Muslim Healthcare Network sent Canadian physicians to see firsthand what is happening in the West Bank. They were denied entry at the Allenby Crossing alongside Canadian parliamentarians and humanitarian organizations. This denial prevented independent eyewitnesses from documenting conditions on the ground. The fact that doctors were blocked from witnessing conditions should concern every Canadian. Since October 2023, Palestinians in the West Bank have faced escalating apartheid conditions, alarming settler violence, expanding illegal settlements, deepening restrictions on freedom of movement, and a healthcare system under severe strain. Clinics and hospitals operate at reduced capacity, patients face serious barriers to care due to Israeli military checkpoints and withholding of tax revenues collected by Israel on behalf of the Palestinian Authority in violation of the Oslo Accords. According to the World Health Organization, 45% of essential medications are out of stock, and health workers have gone unpaid or underpaid for over a year, further limiting healthcare delivery. This incident fits a wider pattern threatening civilian protection and humanitarian operations. The ban on UNRWA has disabled its operations, including 43 healthcare facilities in the West Bank, providing health coverage to 871,000 refugees. The healthcare crisis in the West Bank requires urgent international attention, and the denial of entry to Canadian parliamentarians, healthcare workers, and humanitarian organizations constitutes a serious violation of democratic norms and of the October 2025 International Court of Justice advisory opinion under international law. While the Canadian government has publicly condemned Israel's denial of entry and treatment of the delegation, words alone are not enough. Canada must, firstly, impose sanctions on Israeli politicians and extremist settlers expanding settlements. Secondly, ban settlement goods from entering Canada, as we cannot remain complicit in funding this apartheid state. And finally, investigate charities and NGOs that funnel donations and issue tax receipts funding illegal outposts and settlements. We await a public response from the Canadian government. Expressions of concern are insufficient and no longer enough. The time for action is now, and is now to uphold democratic norms, respect international law, and protect humanitarian access. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Taha Ghayyur from Justice for All Canada, serving as Executive Director. You are a public security risk. That is all we were told by the Israeli border officials when our delegation, comprised of 6 elected officials and 24 Canadian civil society leaders, was denied entry into Palestine. This denial was not about security, it was about censorship. It's part of a broader pattern by Israel to block scrutiny and silence witnesses, whether in Gaza or in the occupied West Bank. And it raises a serious question. What moral authority does a state have to label elected officials and humanitarian leaders as security threats while it carries out genocide against the people it illegally occupies? The truth is clear. Israel did not want us to see what is happening on the ground. It did not want us to witness the rapid expansion of illegal settlements. And it did not want us to see the daily violence inflicted on Palestinian civilians. And here are the facts Israel did not want us to see. Just last week, Israel approved 19 new settlements, bringing the total to about 210 settlements, up nearly 50% since 2022. The settler population in the West Bank and East Jerusalem now exceeds 700,000 people living on occupied land. Since October 7, 2023, there have been over 1,800 settler violence incidents across the West Bank. In October 2025 alone, the UN recorded 264 settler attacks, averaging 8 attacks per day. And nearly 900 Israeli military checkposts and gates now confine daily life in the West Bank, a system of obstruction that punishes civilians. And in 2025 alone, Israeli authorities demolished over 1,090 Palestinian structures, including homes, farms, and livelihoods. After being denied entry, we met Palestinian refugee families in Amman, Jordan. We heard firsthand the trauma carried by 3 generations, displaced by 77 years of colonial settlement and dispossession. We heard heartbreaking stories of children being harassed or delayed at multiple checkpoints on their way to school every morning, or a woman giving birth at a checkpost on the way to the hospital after being held for 7 hours for no cause, or a family being illegally displaced from their home by the settlers as they left for a family dinner in Ramadan. These are not isolated stories. International law is unequivocal. UN bodies and International Court of Justice have affirmed that settlements and population transfer violate the Fourth Geneva Convention and amount to unlawful annexation. Canada already recognizes these settlements as illegal. Time for action is now. We call on Canada to ban all products from illegal settlements and to criminalize the buying and selling of settlement properties by Canadians. Anything less is complicity. Thank you.
I'm just going to do a closing remark, 1 minute, and then we can. Yeah. What we are asking for today is not new. It is echoed by international human rights organizations and the UN. Israeli settlements are illegal. The International Court of Justice reaffirmed this in 2024 advisory opinion and called for the end of the occupation and the evacuation of settlers. The Fourth Geneva Convention is explicit. An occupying power may not transfer its civilians into occupied territory. Canada already recognizes this. Settlements are illegal under international law. That is legal fact, not a political opinion. If settlements are illegal, their products should not be sold in Canada. Settlement land should not be marketed or financed from Canada, and Canadian entities involved in settlement activity must be investigated. This is about applying the law. Canada must move from statements to consequences. Thank you. We can take any questions there are.
No, the mic is open. The mic is open.
Hi. Craig Lord with the Canadian Press. The Israeli embassy in Canada claimed that the Canadian Muslim vote is majority funded by Islamic Relief Worldwide, and that is an entity that Israel lists as a terrorist entity. Is that characterization of TCMV's funding accurate, and what do you make of those allegations that there's connections to terrorist activity?
Thank you very much for that question. So first and foremost, let's get the facts straight that Islamic Relief Canada and Islamic Relief Worldwide are not a terrorist entity. They are mandated by the Canadian government and the CRA. And they went through many audits, and everything has come out that they are not. Even those that have laid this claim, they have taken them to court and won in that. So in this regard, the Israeli government is spreading a lie and trying to, as they have done with other UN organizations, same concept of trying to derail them from their goal. As for TCMV and Islamic Relief Canada, that knowledge is available on CRA's website for the funding that we get. We are a donor-funded organization that gets money from a lot of different qualified donees to do our work that we do. Thank you.
Does this delegation intend to attempt to go back to the West Bank at any point in the future?
At this point, we would like to go back, but we are unsure as to what is next. Thank you.
Last question. What have you heard from Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand and her office with regards to the incident on December 16th? Have you been assured that there is work happening, and what resolution do you want to see next, or are you confident you're going to get that resolution?
Hi, thank you for the question. Conversations with Minister Anand's office are ongoing. Minister Anand did swiftly summon the ambassador to offer an explanation as to why Canadian MPs were barred from entry. But as I mentioned, conversations are ongoing in terms of what we expect. We expect a clear, coherent answer as to why Canadian MPs were barred from entry, why a Canadian delegation was barred from entry, why a sitting Canadian member of parliament was physically assaulted by Israeli border authorities. The answers thus far from the Israeli embassy or Israeli government have been categorically insufficient, inconsistent, and frankly false. So we're expecting a clear-cut and fact-based answer. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on Zoom for a question. We'll start with Emily from Global Mail.
Thank you for taking our questions. I was wondering, you've called for sanctions. Is there people specifically that you want to have sanctioned? And if so, who are they?
We are asking for total sanctions on all settlement products and all settlers. They're all illegal under international law. There is no need to target specific people. It should be a widespread targeting of all settlement and settlement products.
Okay, and just, I'm not super familiar with the products that come from the settlements, but can you give me some examples of what kinds of things are, I don't know, common or popular products that come from that area?
Some of these products include goods. For example, food products that are grown on Palestinian land in Israeli settlements. Yeah, any variety of foods, any variety of products. There's no specification. It's just any settlement product that's developed and sold should be barred from Canada.
Okay. And sorry, just for clarity, you're looking for anyone who, like, you're looking for any people sanctioned who, like, live in the settlements, as well as Israeli, I guess, officials who you're saying sort of facilitate the occupation of the settlements?
Sanctions should be laid against products that are entering Canada, given the fact that Canada deems the settlements illegal under international law. With respect to Israeli officials that should be sanctioned, we've been calling for this for many months now, that the Netanyahu war cabinet should be sanctioned under Magnitsky sanctions for their, many violations of international law and crimes against humanity.
Great, thank you.
There's a question, Emily?
I guess, are you meeting with, like, I know you said the conversations are ongoing, but are you meeting with Minister Anand? Like, do you have any meetings set up for the future? Have you met with her directly?
No meetings have happened directly yet, but conversations have been ongoing with her office.
Do you have any plans to meet in the future? Like, has anything been set up?
All I can tell you, truthfully, is that conversations are ongoing at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the last question, so that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.